Hey everybody, welcome to my new location / my new apartment. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Witch, which is a new horror film that is directed by Robert Eggers. This film marks Eggers' directorial debut, which I found to be quite surprising considering how mature the film looks in terms of its style and also in its motifs. These motifs not only work really well as tone setters, but they are also great in terms of how they evoke a lot of political and religious commentary. The film takes place in olden times, or specifically colonial times, when European settlers were coming over to North America. And this film in particular is about one of the European families that's extremely Puritan, and the family is clearly adjusting to this new life, their new surroundings. They are definitely very homesick, but they are also clinging to that hope for a better life. In the family, there are 5 children. There's a baby, and there are 2 little twins, a little boy named Caleb, and then finally the oldest daughter named Thomasin. One day, Thomasin has the chore of babysitting her little brother, her baby brother, and he just disappears like that and is never seen again. Of course, the parents, and particularly the mother, is just completely grief-stricken, and she blames Thomasin for her son's disappearance. And then the young twins also blame Thomasin in a sort of different way at first. They blame her for being a witch that has cursed them with this demonic witchcraft. This film is just swarming with emblems that, are very paranormal, and there's a lot of satanic imagery that we've seen in many films over and over and over again. You've got black goats, which of course is very famous as a satanic emblem, and then you've got red apples and witches and just all this stuff. And even though you do see a lot of that, it never felt cliche to me. It always felt very kind of genuine and as though it served the plot. Because the film is so heavily laced in spiritual ideas and of course this religious imagery, to me it makes all the more sense that they would see these very, I guess you could call them cliche symbols that have to do with religion as, something that evokes guilt, something that evokes oppression. So it makes all the more sense that these characters would feel that sense of paranoia because they're seeing things that they have just been dominated by for so long to the point where it starts to kind of maybe drive them insane a little bit. And because they are so rooted in their beliefs, they look at anything that is foreign to them or something that they don't understand as something satanic. It's easy to point fingers and place blame on things that you don't understand, and that's just human nature. And of course, what happens when a child disappears, that really shakes up the family dynamic, and someone is going to look for someone to blame. And in this case, it's Thomasin. They look at Thomasin and they blame her because she was supposed to watch her baby brother. And so immediately there's that sense of, well, she is evil, she is a witch. I think the film does a really wonderful job of doing what any good horror film would do by using the paranoia that comes from these societal pressures as the crux of that tension, the crux of where the horror comes from. These ideas, these concepts that we know as oppression and pressure and guilt, anger, whatever, that is what feeds our fears and our insecurities, and that is what horror truly is part of human nature to want to always maintain a sense of normalcy and a sense of control so that we don't slip into what is inevitable chaos, because ultimately we can't control everything, and that couldn't be more apparent in this film. And they really do make you feel that every single moment of the film. You never feel settled. You really do sense that in who I would consider the central character, Thomasin, but it's in all of the characters, particularly the children characters that need to kind of test the waters, to tap into their sexuality, into that rebellion. But these very heavy religious burdens that are kind of brought upon them from their background hinders them from being able to explore any of that, so it just kind of builds and builds and builds. The girl who plays Thomasin, Anya Taylor-Joy, I think she is a born star. She is just remarkable in terms of her maturity for being such a young actress. I always say this, but that's to me a mark of a good actor, when you can say so much with just a look without using any words. And she's able to do that. She has a very, almost like a baby face, childlike innocence about her, but it's tinged with that kind of crafty, sort of mischievous nature, but it never feels forced. And it's very important to have a really good actress playing the part, because to me she is like the central force of strength within the story, because she kind of carries, the burden of conformity, as well as that temptation of seductiveness within, that she is able to kind of feel her way through throughout the film, and that's something that audiences can definitely relate to. And Eggers, the director, builds just a wonderful world around this family, not only her, but everybody. And I know that he has a very extensive background in design. Like he did a lot of set design, prop design, costume design, and things like that for not only films, but he did for plays and on television. It really shows in this film because he just has a very, very meticulous eye for the mise-en-scene. The costumes, the makeup, and the sets, and even just the posture of the characters and the way they speak is very important. The vernacular of the time period. Everything just feels so authentic and nothing feels at all staged. Just the look of the film and the quality of the film has a kind of very earthy, very natural feel to it that does allow for the edges of the frame to kind of just blur and just almost disappear and transport you into that other world. Eggers is definitely using a lot of very clear influences, I think. At least that's how it seemed to me. You know, films like The Shining and even There Will Be Blood, even though There Will Be Blood's not a horror film, just in terms of that very discordant, very shrill use of strings and just in the musical score. But personally, I was comparing the film to something that was very unlikely, not a horror film at all, but some of the films of Ingmar Bergman, particularly The Virgin Spring, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. That's a film that was made in the 60s, but it's about a family that lives in the woods, and you know, there is a lot of spirituality and a lot of religion woven through it. And yet these influences never feel like they overpower Eggers' intention in terms of his point of view as an artist. It has a very natural tone, as I said, that hints at mysticism and otherworldliness here and there. But there's also a major, I guess, sense of sharpness. I love the way that he cuts between scenes. Also, when he just does jump cuts, it's very jarring and unexpected and not something that you typically see. And by achieving that effect, it's almost as if he's saying, you know, how much of this is in real time? How much of this is happening in real time? How much of this is happening in the characters' minds? And how much of this is really real? All of this is culminating into an ending that I think is going to divide some people. I'm not going to give away spoilers here, but I actually found the ending to be kind of positive in a strange way. And I don't mean in terms of the effect of it, because it is a disturbing kind of ending, but there was a sense of liberation in terms of the themes and the way they were conveyed and how they were built by Eggers. It just felt very earned for me. But, you know, again, I'll have to talk about that in a spoiler-free zone some other time. So yeah, I really like this movie. I'm loving seeing this kind of great resurgence of a lot of fantastic horror films in the past several years, like, you know, as The Babadook I loved, and It Follows last year, and now this one. And I really admire the film's bravura and the way that it creates a tone that feels completely authentic to the story and the overarching themes. It's hard sometimes to kind of blend all of those together and make something cohesive, and they managed to do it. So that is my review. Thank you all for listening. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, the link is below, and you can also like my Facebook page and the link below that one. Catch you next time.